Welcome to episode 125 of the Quick Time Event Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Josh, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in crime, John.
That be me.
Quick Time Event is a chance for John and I to get together each and every week to talk about all of the nerdy things that we love. If you like what you hear, you can find us live on twitch.tv/CDRMagnus every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, except for the holidays, and on all of your favorite podcast services all across the internet shortly after the live show ends. It is, the weather outside is frightful, but this podcast is going to be oh so delightful because it's the day before Christmas Eve. It's a Christmas Eve.
Yep.
We got on our ugly sweaters. I got a PlayStation ugly sweater on.
I would have a Zelda one if GameStop didn't screw me.
You went out on a limb and bought something from GameStop. You even got other people to buy stuff from GameStop. I was one of them.
I inspired two other people. I was the reason, sort of, why GameStop got 3 sales.
Right. At least 3 different people bought ugly sweaters or Christmas nerd stuff from GameStop. After I think Wario64 tweeted that they had stuff on sale. John bought some stuff, and then John tweeted out that he bought stuff. And from John's tweet, I went on, bought this Christmas sweater. Someone else bought something. John, however, has not received his merchandise. It has been well over 2 weeks at this point, or at the very least a week and a half, something like that.
Yeah, it's been like a week and a half.
I got mine within like a day. They came like the next day.
You know what should have been the sign for me was every time I checked the tracking, and I thought it was just a glitch in the system because like the postal service is just overwhelmed right now.
Sure.
But every time I checked the tracking, it was like, your package is ready to go and waiting for USPS to pick it up. And I was like, well, that can't be right. It has to, like, they sent me an email that, like, my package is shipped. But then whenever I click the thing, my package is not shipped. So
I think GameStop might have just stolen your package. I think that the employee that was delivering stuff either just, like, missed it entirely, or he just took it home, or who knows. Any litany of things might have happened. However, it is Christmas Eve. John found a replacement sweater to wear.
Oh yeah,
and
I've got another sweater. Don't worry.
The podcast, if you're watching the video podcast, if you're listening to the audio podcast right now, do yourself a favor, go check out the video podcast if you've ever done that before. Do it for the first time, and look at our Yule log. Look at this beautiful Yule log that we are enjoying on the podcast tonight to celebrate.
It's lovely.
Capitalism, and to celebrate the very, very close impending doom of 2020. 2020 is so close to being dead.
We're in the home stretch, folks. We have 8 days left,
something like that. For me, New Year's Day, like that whole holiday is about the next year. It's not about like 2020. For me, like Christmas.
No, yeah, you look forward to the new year. That's the point.
For me, Christmas is like the funeral of the previous year. Christmas is like the last thing that happens, and then you move on with your life. Hopefully, next year we will all be able to move on with our goddamn lives and get back to some sense of normalcy at some point. But with that said, tonight on the podcast, we're going to be discussing the best and worst of 2020. So we're going to be having that funeral episode, that wake. Here's the 2020 wake episode of Quick Time Event. So that's going to be our topic of the show. We might get into a couple news stories depending on how long that topic takes us, but we'll get there when we get there. Until then, John, what you been up to?
I actually went and played 2 separate games because I felt bad that I had not played anything for a while.
Oh.
So the one was really, really short. It was a lovely little indie title called Florence. And it was a good time. It was very, I don't know what the right word is, but it was, I guess, therapeutic.
Sure.
To see a game that's focused around a relationship between 2 people, that's not like an original idea by any means, but to see it not necessarily have the happily ever after that you expect from that kind of story, like to take a different approach, to have a happily ever after, but one of self-empowerment instead of like a Prince Charming kind of deal.
Right.
So definitely check it out. It's I think it's $1 on iTunes.
It's so cheap if you get it. And that's where I recommend playing it. Did you play it on iTunes or was it on Switch?
I got it on Switch. It was on sale for like I think it was a couple extra bucks, but I was like, it's fine. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean it's a 30 to 40 minute game. Like you're probably going to play it once and never touch it again, but it's worth the dollar or two or whatever it is on iOS.
I'm pretty sure it's
spin it.
99 cents on iOS.
Okay.
It's definitely cheaper. I was like, well, I mean, I have the Switch.
Yeah.
I should just get it there.
But yeah, it's like you said, it takes a different kind of stance towards relationships, and it's kind of cool because it's like it has no it's so like monotony is not the right word, but it's like so
It's simple.
simple, but it's like it's not what's the opposite of supernatural? It's just like it's very
It's very ordinary.
ordinary. Like
Yeah.
the scenario in the game is just so ordinary, but it's a scenario that most everybody goes through at some point in their life.
It's ridiculously relatable
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, the like context and certain aspects of it are going to be different for everybody, obviously, because relationships aren't just a blanket thing. But like the underlying premise behind it is something that I would wager 95 for maybe 90% of people over the age of like 25 have experienced.
Sure. Yeah, I 100% recommend Florence. I think that was on my game of the year list. I think I played it. I played it on the plane to Tokyo. So that would have been 2018, I guess.
So it ate about what, like
A
tenth of your trip?
Yeah, something like that. You know what I did with another 45 minutes of that plane ride? I
don't know.
I watched like 2/3 of the live action Gintama movie before I had to turn it off.
Oh God,
It's so
Yeah,
bad.
don't.
It's super bad.
No, thanks. The other game that I played, and I think I've mentioned it quite a few times, wanting to play it, and then for whatever reason I just hadn't played it, and then I was like, you know what, fine, it's on sale. I'm just gonna get it. I'm gonna do this. I finally bought and played I Am Dead.
What is that game?
It is a puzzle game. It's another. I think it was Annapurna. It's a puzzle game about perspective. Like it's like the game itself. Like the theme isn't about perspective, but like you're basically trying to find these items. So how it works is there's 6 different levels. In each level, you are trying to basically talk to the ghost of somebody that you knew who has also passed on.
Okay.
And the way you do it is you like observe and go through the memories of people who are still alive, which there will be like a significant item from their memory, which you then have to go find, and it's hidden somewhere. And like with the perspective thing, like you can click on an item and then like zoom in, and you'll kind of like splice into it and like peel back that item and see what's inside. And there might be another item inside that you can then look through. Like if you find a cabinet or something, you can click on the cabinet, zoom in, and then like the doors of the cabinet are gone. But then you see all the things inside the cabinet, and there could be like a box in the cabinet which has more stuff inside. So that's the main mechanic of the game. But the real thing that was good about the game was the theme, because it talked about death in a way that people don't normally talk about death. It framed it not in a like sad way, but in a because I was even looking at some articles after the fact, and I want to say the way they phrased it, and I really liked it, was they phrased this person's death in the like frame of reference of a celebration of life instead, where it wasn't like sad things, but it was happy memories and how they impacted people when they were alive. So it was a very charming little game. It's not not long at all. I got all the collectibles and everything, which you don't really get any kind of reward for. So that was a little frustrating, but I don't know, 5-hour game, 6-hour game.
Not
If
bad.
you get all the collectibles. If you don't, it's probably more like 3.5, 4.
I think it's kind of interesting that there's so many, and they're mainly in the indie realm, but there are so many indie games coming out now that deal with the idea of death and that are exploring death from a perspective other than like the typical video game death perspective. Like,
Yeah.
Spiritfarer that I played this year also looks at death in a unique way. It's not exactly celebratory, but it's more about acceptance and like.
Sure.
You look at other games that have done like To the Moon and Finding Paradise is another game that, or other games I guess that sort of touch on some of the same subjects, and like I don't know, these games are powerful. Like they're
they're ridiculously impactful, and I don't know if it's because they're coming from these small studios that can like work on something that's so intimate. Like if I feel like if a large scale studio tried to do it, there'd just be too many cooks in the kitchen.
Sure. Like I'm thinking about the games I played, the AAA games I played this year, that deal with death in a way that's other than just like, oh, I'm killing a bunch of people because it's a video game.
Yeah.
And obviously, The Last of Us Part 2 has a lot of major deaths in it.
Sure.
Yakuza, actually, that I just finished, I'll talk about in a second. That has some major deaths in it. And not that the deaths in those games aren't impactful, because, I mean, The Last of Us Part 2, the entire storyline hinges on the death of a character and how characters cope with that person's death. It's just like, it works similar to how like a death in a major movie would feel. Like I'm gonna spoil Avengers Endgame right now, but that's a movie that came out a year ago, and
Sure.
If you don't want me to spoil it, I won't.
I think I know what happens.
Okay, so
I think I know what you're gonna say.
Fast forward 20 seconds if you don't want to hear it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Tony Stark dies in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
That's a huge moment, and obviously it's going to have huge repercussions for the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward. And there's a nice funeral, and everybody's sad, and like it was a major point in the movie, and it was impactful. But it's not. It doesn't like make you think about it, you know? Like you're not thinking about Tony Stark's death as like, oh man, he had a really great life, or like, oh he had all these things.
You don't think about like all the positives. You just think about kind of the hole that is now there.
Right. And it's similar. That's a similar kind of thing that happens with AAA games. Like, with the death that happens in The Last of Us Part 2, it's obviously a sad moment. It's a really fucked up moment, actually. And like everything that happens after that is really unfortunate. And it's like that's its own message.
Yeah.
But the game doesn't reflect on that death in a way that like makes you as the player think about it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Or at least reflect on it in a way where you apply it to your own life. Maybe you reflect on it, but you're reflecting on it in a critical sense, as like, oh, how is this going to impact Ellie? How is this going to impact these characters? You're not like trying to link that to something that happened to you.
Yeah.
Or like have personal meaning necessarily to you. But these indie games do a great job of that.
Oh, 100%. And they're the ones who are kind of taking that gamble and taking that different approach. So, but yeah, I think that was the most of what I did. Obviously, watched some more One Piece. Working my way through that. So, I'm on an annoying arc that I hate. It's a shorter one, and it's almost fillery, but like crew members are at risk of, they're almost like gambling with their crew members, and I'm just like, stop it. This is too stressful. I don't need this. If you're all risking your lives together and like maybe dying, I can handle that stress. If you're gonna be torn apart because of a stupid like bet that you made, I hate it. Get out.
Filler episodes of any television series, because this is not something that's solely anime, an issue for anime. Filler episodes drive me insane. I don't know why they exist. It's so annoying. Like, there was an episode of The Office during it's the season where they get bought out by Saber, and there's an episode where it's just like clips of old episodes, basically. It's like,
you gotta hate the recap episodes too.
like,
Those are the worst.
Right, and then there's like My Hero Academia is really bad about this, but I know it's pretty typical in anime that comes out in seasons at least, where the first episode of like a season of anime is just a recap episode.
Yeah,
of what happened in the last season.
Cannot stand the recap episodes.
It's so annoying.
They are
it's
so
like, just trust
because
me.
I don't ever
want to know.
The thing that I really don't like about recap episodes, especially, is that I don't want to skip it, because what if like halfway through it they're like, we're gonna cut the recap short by like 10 minutes and give you something real, new, and now you're gonna miss out on it because you decided to skip this episode.
Yeah, can't stand them.
Kill la Kill did it really well, and it was, I mean, it's Trigger Studio, who I view more as a satire studio, but they had a recap episode, and by that I mean the little tiny bit before the theme song played. They did a recap that was just like fast forward times 10. And they were like, "Oh, you thought this is gonna be a real recap episode? No, we're not gonna do that to you.
Wasn't
this is
Kill la
like
Kill
26 episode show."
Yeah, Kill la Kill's only like 26 episodes long. Like you don't need a whole, what is that, like a 13th of the series.
But I think they were doing that to make fun of
sure.
all those shows that, because there are some shows that like are only maybe 40 episodes that do a recap legitimately, and I'm just like, what's the point? I just watched these like 20 episodes. Like a tenth of each episode is going into this new episode, which is not new.
No, yeah, like this was like billed as a new episode. It's a new season of the show. I don't want to see old stuff. I want to see new stuff. That's why I'm watching right now.
Please and thank you.
I guess like you could say something about bringing new fans on, or like bringing people up to speed if they truly have not watched. But I just say to those people, go fucking do your homework. You know?
Yeah. This stuff isn't locked away in a Disney vault somewhere.
No.
Like, go watch it. I don't think there's any anime that's like, you know what? We're only going to have the current season on. All the old stuff is gone.
Yeah.
We deleted it. It is no longer available.
So I finally finished Yakuza Like a Dragon. I can't remember what I talked about last week. I think last week I mentioned that after I grinded for money, I had to go back and grind XP again.
This sounds familiar, but I'm also mixing up now what you might have mentioned when we played Persona.
Oh, that might have happened on
last week.
You're
was
right.
Cyberpunk, I think.
You're right. I think I mentioned last week on this. That's right. On last week's podcast, I mentioned that I had to grind for 3 million yen, and that took a long time.
For a Roomba.
Yes,
because you were pissed off that it was for a Roomba.
No. That was another million yen for a side story. That came later. That was not part of this.
Was the 3 million yen for the politician?
Yes, the 3 million yen was for a main story quest where I was funding my own, and it ended up being my own political campaign. It was to fund the entry fee or whatever to run as a political candidate for the Diet.
Excellent. I've always wondered what the Diet is. I hear it in so many
it's just their house
animes and like, yeah, I guess, but why are they calling it the Diet?
I don't know. I think it's I have no idea. I'm not even going to try to answer.
Error,
yeah, I don't think it's an error. I think it's just what they call it. But okay, so that happened during the podcast. And then if you watched the Let's Play that we did for Persona 4 Golden this week, I mentioned that after that I got to the next story beat in that same chapter. Still the same chapter, chapter 12. And I found out I was like 10 levels under leveled. And I had to go to a dungeon and grind out at least 10 levels.
Oof.
Finished that, got back on the story beat, finished chapter 12, finished chapter 13, finished chapter 14 without really having to do any more grinding. Chapter 15, which is the final chapter, had to grind some more.
Naturally.
Like another hour. Or another 10 levels, rather. Which took probably like 2 hours. And then, finally, got to get to the last boss, and I finished the game.
It sounds like bad pacing.
It is horrible pacing. And I'm conflicted because I think I understand why they did it. I think I understand, and there's two sort of things that are going on in my head. The first is that this is the first time Ryuga Gotoku has ever done an RPG like this. Like, all of the other Yakuza games have just been, brawlers.
Yeah, true.
So maybe they just like, this was something they didn't really think too far ahead on.
Bit of a learning curve that they didn't quite get right.
The thing I don't know that that's it though. I think the thing that they actually tried to do was really drive home the callbacks to Dragon Quest and the grinding that you had to do in JRPGs in the 90s and early 2000s.
See, you don't need to call back to things that aren't great.
Right. And it's like every time that there was an area that you needed to grind, they gave you a new dungeon to do it in. So it wasn't like you were going back to earlier places to like dig through stuff. They gave you a new dungeon to grind in, but you had to run that dungeon multiple times to get to where you needed to be. So like, I think they were doing it intentionally.
That sounds like an homage in the worst possible way.
Not a big fan of that at all. No. However, if you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you probably know that I put story pretty high in my category of things that I look at when I try to be critical about a game. Usually the story is at the top of the things. Gameplay is important, obviously, to me too, but story really drives a lot of my enjoyment around games.
Yes.
Yakuza Like a Dragon, especially the last 5 chapters or so, like the way that they progress that story is fucking incredible. Like, you think you know where that story's going for 10 chapters, and then for the last 5 chapters, they blew my mind. It was to the level of like the first time I played Persona 5 and I found out like what was at the depths of Mementos. Like, it was like these huge revelations that were like shocking. I was legitimately like in awe of things that were happening on the TV. And especially in the final chapter, after you beat the final boss, there's probably like literally like 30 minutes of cutscenes after you beat the final boss. Those last 30 minutes contain some of the best character acting I've ever seen. Not just in a game, anywhere.
Wow.
The character acting is so good in that last 30 minutes. There is so much emotion that they put into their acting, and that, and especially these two characters in particular, through that last little bit of the game. It's such Yakuza Like a Dragon is such a great game. And the gameplay stuff, especially the grinding, bring it down a little bit. And I'm struggling on where to put it in my game of the year list. But like, I was blown away by how that game ended. That's coming from someone who has had a great deal of exposure to the Yakuza franchise without actually having played the vast majority of it. Because I spent so much time in the Persona fandom, there's obviously a lot of crossover there with the Yakuza fandom because of Sega. And through that, I've seen a lot of art. I have a feel for a lot of the characters just because I've seen a lot of art around those characters or people that talk fondly about those characters. So a few of those characters ended up showing up at the end of Like a Dragon in the last couple of chapters.
Yeah. I think you had mentioned that on the Persona stream.
Yeah, so a few of those really well-known characters start to show up. And granted, actually, none of them really play a big role in the story. It's not like they come in and save the day, or they come in and it's like the story is all of a sudden focused on them. Like, the story is always about Ichiban, and it never diverges from there. But he, like the other characters coming in, act as like pretty good fan service to amp up some of the moments that are happening.
Sure.
There. So, I mean, I was frustrated. I was really frustrated with that game over the last week and a half because I just felt like I'm at the end. Just let me finish the game. I want to see the end of the game. But now that I'm done with it, like, it was like, looking back on it, it was such a great experience. Highly, highly, highly recommend it, especially again for the character acting. And if you like crime stories, if you like drama at all, if you like humor, there's something for everybody in that. So can't recommend that one enough. Finished Yakuza Monday. Today's Wednesday, so 2 days ago. And then yesterday I downloaded two things. I downloaded Cyberpunk 2077 on my PC.
Oh boy. Oh, on your PC, coward.
On my PC. Well, I can't buy it on PlayStation. There's just no way to do it.
You can get a physical copy somewhere.
Oh, that's fair. I could have gone to GameStop and bought the physical copy. Do I want to talk about that? We can maybe touch on that in a minute at the end of the show when we get to news.
We're gonna bring up GameStop again.
We might bring up GameStop. Well, actually, it's not even GameStop. It was CD Projekt Red basically telling people to go to GameStop to buy Cyberpunk on the PS4. But anyway, got Cyberpunk, and then I also downloaded Demon Souls for PS5.
That's right.
Yes. So now I have the next 11 days off now. I'm going to be doing nothing for the next 11 days but playing Cyberpunk and Demon Souls. Throwing some Overwatch too. But got those two games to kind of just lose myself in for the next week and a half or so. So I started Cyberpunk. I'm about 4 hours in. Have only had 2 glitches, and both of them were funny glitches. One, have not had any crashes, no crashes yet. The first one was there was like your sidekick or whatever. He walked through a door without the door opening. He just walked right through the door.
Didn't
give a shit that it was closed. Phased in
Excellent.
right through the door. And then the other one was my car. When I went to my car one time, the car was just floating above the road. It's
Excellent.
Flying
you
car.
love to see that.
That doesn't exist in that universe, but it did then. So far, I feel like I'm coming at this from I don't want to say a unique angle, because I really truly do feel at the end of the day, the vast majority of people that are going to play Cyberpunk 2077, especially this holiday season, and then whenever they re-release the game here in a couple months, I feel like most people are going to walk into this with like expectations set at a reasonable level.
Yeah.
All of the anger that is existing on the internet right now is mainly coming from the hardcore that have been looking forward to this for a very long time, and then the a little bit elevated than casual people who understand what Cyberpunk is and what like the narrative around that game has been. Maybe they're not like excited about playing it, but they've heard all the stuff coming out of CD Projekt Red about the crunch and like what this game's expectations were, and it came out and it was not that, and now they're pissed off because they just want to be pissed off about something.
Plus, it's a title that they've heard thrown around for 8 years or whatever.
Yeah.
However many years. If you're, even if you know nothing about it, if you hear the same thing being talked about for 8 years, you're going to have high expectations because they've had so much time.
Sure. Yeah. So the expectations for me going into this game are that it's an incredible world. I think that that's something that CC last week on the podcast really drove home, is that the world is what makes this game.
Yep.
Like the environmental storytelling, the lore, like the backstory stuff is what makes the game. And I'm coming into this with the expectation that it's not going to do anything revolutionary as a game, as an RPG. Like it's not this world changing thing or this like industry changing thing. It's just an RPG with a really cool world. That's what I'm coming into the game with. And so far my expectations have been met. Like the world is great. And like I'm not thrilled with some of the combat. Like the combat could feel a little bit better. It feels like Fallout in a lot of ways. The combat does. Not quite as bad as Fallout 4's gunplay. Definitely better than Fallout 3's gunplay if you're worried about that.
Yeah.
It definitely feels better than Fallout 4's gunplay. The melee leaves a little bit something to be desired, but like having my expectations at a reasonable level going into this game, playing it on PC, granted a powerful PC with a 3080 GPU, like
not your everyday PC.
No. I am thrilled with what I've played so far. Granted, it's been 4 hours. I've not had any crashes yet. If that starts to happen regularly, or if like there's something game breaking, then I might, have a different opinion. But as of right now, it's kind of what I've wanted for a while, with like an RPG that maybe doesn't have really deep character customization or as deep as you would want it to be. But at the same time, it is letting me go in and like make decisions in a way that makes me feel more engaged with the main character. Like, it's not so much that those decisions are going on to change the world in any way. Like, it's not having any impact on the story, but like it's allowing me to connect with the character a little bit more. I'm playing a female V with the female voice, mainly because Charami Lee voices the female voice. Charami Lee, prominent voice actor, plays Red Blood Cell in
Oh, okay. Cells at Work.
Yeah. Also voices one Nijima Makoto in English. So decided to play female V. So I'll talk more about that next week and the week after, most likely. But so far, meeting expectations. My like very medium expectations.
Your lukewarm expectations.
Yeah. Yep.
Perfect.
If you didn't listen to last week's episode, it is a full 2-hour blowout on Cyberpunk 2077 with somebody that has actually played the game. So if you want Cyberpunk 2077 talk in depth, go listen to that episode if you haven't already, because you'll probably find it there.
Look at us. We're doing what we just said that we hate. We just recapped.
We did just recap.
What if we recapped every episode just a little bit?
All right, last week we talked about this and this and this. If you want to listen to that, go talk about that podcast.
From our very first episode, here's what we did. Just a real quick brief overview for those of you who are just jumping in.
Way back on way back on February 14th, 2018, we did a best games to play with your Valentine episode. It's one of our highest rated episodes of all time, so maybe you should go listen to that one.
Oh, my. What's the phrase? You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Yep. I guess we lived too long.
And then with Demon Souls, I literally just popped into Demon Souls about 3 hours ago. I got through the character creator, which, okay, for both Cyberpunk and for Demon Souls, I spent way too long in the character creator.
Sure.
I mean, Cyberpunk's character creator is okay. It's pretty in depth compared to some other character creators. Demon Souls character creator, though, actually legitimately like really great.
That's good to hear because I forgot to mention my buddies and I are doing another Dark Souls 3 run. But we're capping out where we're going to level up to, and we're mostly going to focus on the PvP aspect of the game. So like we're not going to go and fight all the bosses and try to beat the game. We're just going to
fuck with people.
Basically, yeah. And we each chose one of the characters in Age of Calamity. So some of the aesthetic choices you can make aren't as great as you'd want them to be. So it's nice to hear that Demon Souls is probably
so
a little
good.
more fleshed out.
It's super good. You can you can pick features, but then you can edit a lot of those features too. Similar to like the Mii character creator, where you can like change the position of stuff. You can like move features in and out and like shape the face how you want it. It's pretty in depth. I was actually really surprised. So I got through the character creator, created my character, and then got through the first death, essentially, of the game. Got killed by the first boss, went back to the little hub world thing.
Which I'm sure you were supposed to.
Yes. It one-shotted me. There was no way that I could have done it. I had full health, it just one-shotted me. So I assumed that I was supposed to die there.
Roll.
Yeah. There's nowhere to even roll because like it's like a very narrow corridor, and then the demon at the end of it is like it takes up the entire corridor. So you could even like roll around it. I don't know how. When I get back to it, I don't know how I'm gonna fight it because there's like very little room. But
something will happen.
I died there, went back to the hub world, and that's all I did. So I have not played any of Demon Souls. Looking forward to continuing that tomorrow. A lot more to report back on though.
I don't know how I feel about the order that you're playing these games in. Because like Demon Souls came out first.
Yes.
So it makes sense that you would play it first. However, it is now the newest, prettiest version. And like now it feels like you're playing it also backwards. Like you should play Dark Souls 1, then 2, then 3. And then I really don't know what order I feel Demon Souls should be played in now.
My stance on that is I played Bloodborne first, which came out after Dark Souls 2. So I played the...
Bloodborne's its own thing.
So is Demon
right?
Souls. Demon Souls is its own thing.
All right, fair.
Yeah. Own game. Same studio.
All right. All right. All right.
Like Sekiro is the same way.
All right. Neat. Well, you enjoy. You enjoy all the dying.
I will die a lot, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Also,
that's the point.
What's it called? The controller's on the ground. Not adaptive triggers. What the haptic feedback.
Yeah.
I've been missing that because Yakuza Like a Dragon is the PS4 version of the game. I don't understand what's going on with that. The Xbox Series X version of Yakuza Like a Dragon is out now. PS5 version's not. So I played the PS4 version of the game on the PS5. The PS5 version's coming out in like a couple months or something.
That seems a little weird.
Very weird. Especially since Yakuza's always been a PlayStation franchise. I know that Xbox had some marketing with them. But I don't think... But like the PS4 version came out. So it can't be like a exclusive contract kind of deal. It's weird. But... Play the PS4
strange.
version.
Very, very strange.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to mention. Oh, I did play one other game today that John's going to be upset with me about.
I mean, listen, it wasn't going to be in my game of the year discussion.
Okay. That was my question.
It was a charming little game. It was a nice little breath of fresh air.
It is. So I played a long walk or a short hike. A long walk, a short hike. Two separate things. I played a short hike.
They're the same thing if you think about it.
It's for sale on the eShop. I think it was like $6.50 on the eShop. Normally it's only $8, so it was like $2 off. But
yeah, it's ridiculously cheap any way that you look at it.
Yeah. Visually, it's a cool looking game. It's like pixel art, but like 3D.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting visually. And it had like a nice little, like John said, charming world. Like there were some like neat little side activities you did to get the little items you need to progress the story, essentially. And there's like some humorous dialogue and some fun stuff that happens. It's just like when I look at that game and then I compare it to the other indie games that I played this year, not even the other AAA games, but like Coffee Talk and Spiritfarer and even like Fall Guys and Among Us, like this game is not anywhere near that level.
No, it's not on their caliber for sure. I just thought it was an enjoyable little bite-sized experience.
It is. It's very short. It's less than 2 hours long. So
unless you get everything, which I think I did on my playthrough.
Okay. Yeah, I just did basically the bare minimum, but
I
think I got a couple extra. I don't know how many feathers there are, but I think I got 8 or 9, something like that. You only need 7.
And then there's silver ones that let you do other things better. Like I think it like triples your height from your jumps or something. Like you can basically just fly at that point if you get those.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I played that real quick today while Demon Souls was downloading, actually. So that worked out.
There you go.
Okay, so let's move on to our topic of the show, which is our 2020 wrap-up. We are going to talk about the worst and the best of 2020. I want to start with the worst.
There's so much.
There's so much bad stuff that happened. I actually tried to be level about it. I think I have 7 bad things and 7 good things.
Okay, I didn't really specifically list anything out. I thought about different things, and overwhelmingly it was bad. I think that's just how the year goes.
Sure. So do you have anything that comes to mind? Like, do you have bullet points to go through, or do you just kind of want to have a discussion about what I have down and kind of go from there?
I mean, I've got some things in mind that I can bring up. I didn't write anything down, though, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. No, just like how many things, I guess just do you have an idea of how many things you have?
No.
Okay. Where do I want to start then? First...
I feel like we should start and just get this out of the way. The pandemic sucked.
Yeah, I guess that's a good place to start. My what I have written down is a stage direction, like in italics, in little asterisks or whatever, gestures wildly around you at the world.
Yeah. Like unrelated to video games, but also affecting everything, including video games.
Horrible.
Miserable.
So I was just watching, I got away from watching YouTube for a long time, and all of a sudden this year, I think mostly because of the pandemic, I've started watching a few YouTubers again. And it's...
Who are you watching?
I like them because they're funny people and like they're relatable. Mostly I'm watching them because they all live in Japan. They're all Japanese. They're all gaijin YouTubers that live in Japan. I'm watching Abroad in Japan, which is Chris Broad's channel, and then basically
I've seen that pop up on my Twitter feed a lot.
Everybody that hangs out with Chris Broad. So there's Charla, who's a Canadian. Chris is he's British. There's a Canadian YouTuber that lives there that I watch. Then a few other people, but like I've been watching these YouTubers
living the life you want to be living right now.
Exactly, right. To pretend like I can be in Japan right now, traveling.
Hey guys,
doing
friends.
Fun stuff.
What's up, my buds?
Yeah. So we just watched a video of they went to the Hokkaido snow festival in February of this year, like a month before lockdown started happening around the world. And like in the video, somebody asked, because they were live streaming it, and one person like in the chat asked, "Hey, how's the coronavirus?" And they were like, "Oh, it's like not really a thing. It's like it's okay. We're all living life. It's good." And then like literally a month later, it's March, and we're all fucking just.
You can't leave your house.
You can't leave your house. This is just the world we live in, and it sucks ass.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, let's hope 2021. Improves vastly. Hopefully vaccines get made quickly enough that we can maybe have some sort of return to normalcy by late spring, early summer. That would be fucking fantastic.
Yeah. And listen, I'm a little baby who is so afraid of shots. I'm getting that damn thing. There's no excuse.
No.
Unless you like medically can't get it.
Right. And even
for whatever
like,
reason,
there was some reports about there were like a couple people that had allergic reactions to the shot when they got it a couple weeks ago. One of them was a nurse, and the nurse was like, I would get the shot again immediately because they can treat the allergic reaction that I'm gonna have. Yeah. They can give me an EpiPen and I'll be okay. I can die from the other thing. So there's literally no reason not to get it.
Yep. I did see a very funny tweet since we're just on this discussion of just this, where it was a screenshot from this person. You know Jesse McLaren? He's one of those Vine people.
Name sounds familiar.
Do you know the Full House theme song?
Yes.
Where it's like starring me and then me also featuring me? It's that guy.
Yeah. Okay.
So he was like, what's one thing the 1920s had that the 2020s should bring back? And he tweeted this on 11/13/2019.
Oh, no.
Months before the coronavirus.
Uh-oh.
And this shitpost account tweeted pandemics.
You know what I was thinking about the other day? You know what was a really fucking just like ordinary sentence that would come out of people's mouths in 2019?
I think I know exactly what it is. Is it avoid it like the plague?
No, that's a good one though.
Because we are bad at avoiding it like the plague, turns out.
It turns out, yes, we're really bad at that. I was going to say, you hear like sarcastic people say, we could really use another plague right now.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's not a thing that people are going to be allowed to say anymore. That's like, Don't ever say that, please.
Never again.
So yeah, plague, 2020, worst of, for sure. Top of the list every single time.
0 out of 10. Would not do again. Would not recommend to a friend.
Please no. Please no.
0 out of 5 stars. Not even 1.
Okay, if you don't have things written down, I think I kind of want to bounce back between worst of and best of.
Okay.
Because I have a couple things that are kind of both. And actually,
I'm curious now.
the pandemic is kind of one of them.
Hmm.
Best of 2020, working from home.
True.
Everybody
Love it.
realizing that working from home is totally viable and we don't need to spend money, like ridiculous amounts of money on fucking office space in downtown Manhattan or whatever the fuck. Just like go
Yeah.
live in the middle of Kansas and work from home. It's totally fine.
You know who really, there's one group that really truly has appreciated this pandemic because A, they don't know what's going on, and B, they are only seeing the benefit. And that is all the dogs out there. My dog, I don't think, has ever been happier. She goes in her crate like if I have to go out for groceries, which is rare.
Yeah.
They are
Child
living,
care, like
they are
child
living their
care.
best lives. Yeah, yeah. Parents, new parents who can now be home with their kid, which I've heard like that's one of the harder things whenever you're a new parent is to at some point have to go back to work and not see your kid every moment of every day.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I know that there are plenty of essential workers out there that wish they could be working from home. I realize this is a privileged position
For sure.
that I'm
Yeah.
in, and a lot of people are in. But I think that the benefits will outweigh. Let me not say that. I think that the benefits of this pandemic when it comes to working arrangements are going to hopefully transform work for the better going forward. Like
Yeah.
in all industry,
There's no
as much as it
reason
can.
for so many people to go back to an office.
Sure. Like fucking, you know how much, and you know how many years of my life I've probably saved not driving to work in the morning? Like waking up at the ass crack of dawn to drive to work in traffic with Columbus, Ohio drivers, which are, you can look this up, statistically the worst drivers in the country. Like that stress is just gone from my life. I never have to do that anymore. It's
Not
great.
to mention the just straight up commute time itself.
And all of those people
And-
that are no longer commuting, now the people that do have to commute no longer have all of that other traffic to deal with.
Yeah.
So those are some of the benefits I think we're going to see, hopefully, going forward. But yeah, I realize that this is a privileged position and there are a lot of people out there that don't have this ability.
Yeah.
But at least in my life, being able to work from home has drastically improved my psychological well-being, I guess.
Continuing on this this positivity train in regards to being in a pandemic and being locked down. I think one other thing is that the old phrase, you don't know what you had until it's gone. Like whenever we do get back to even a sense of normalcy, I think people that took a lot of things, myself included, for granted are going to really appreciate those things when we get them back. I always loved traveling, but like I would never really go out that much and like experience my own city or like just do little things that I could do any weekend. Like if it was a big trip, that's one thing. But if it was just like, hey, I'm going to go to the zoo or something, I was like, no, I don't feel like it. Why would I? But now I'm just like, hey, I should go out and get these experiences outside of my house instead of just like sitting at home all the time.
Yeah. Shoot, what was I just going to say?
Not sure.
What did we talk about right before? I interrupted you. Fuck, I forgot what it was already. That's okay. Anyway.
Yeah, I was saying traveling, and then you said something, but it didn't really take any form.
That's okay. We'll move on.
All right.
Anything else about the pandemic? A lot of these other things
so.
are going to. We're going to. Spoiler alert. Everything was impacted by the pandemic this year. So I think some of these
100%.
other stuff are going to, reference back to that. But like pandemic specific things, I guess.
I think one last thing for the pandemic is it helped I don't know if helped is the right word, but like there are a lot of projects that people had and they tell themselves, oh, if only I had the time to do this. This is an important thing. I just don't have the time to do it because I'm always working. I'm never home, blah, blah, blah. I think people have hopefully made realizations about what they actually want to do versus what they told themselves they want to do and just used an excuse for not actually making progress on. Because especially if you're in a position to work from home, like you don't have that excuse anymore. You just got back whatever your commute time was. And like, if you can take a lunch break, you have an hour to do whatever that thing is from the comfort of your own home. You got to be real with yourself now.
Right.
There's no more excuses. There's no more if only I had the time. You have the time. You have probably the resources. You just
do it. Just do it.
Just be honest with yourself.
Shia LaBeouf, do it.
Basically.
Next worst thing of 2020 for me was from our favorite little indie company, the Nintendo company.
Yeah.
Nintendo was fucking shit this year, you guys.
They were garbage.
Terrible.
And somehow they are getting worse. Have you seen the recent stuff?
How recent?
Like a day or two ago?
Maybe not.
Oh no.
So let me get what I have here in here first, and then maybe we could go to that.
Okay.
So Nintendo, started this year, and we were like, where the fuck is Nintendo? No January Direct? No Spring Direct? Okay, we got Animal Crossing. Okay, we got an announcement for Paper Mario, but no Direct. Oh, it's July. It's E3 time. No Direct? Oh, we got a little mini thing. Still to this day, have not gotten a true Nintendo Direct. Not a single Direct in all of 2020.
Nope.
Not one.
Why would we need that?
Very little communication from the first party. No news about Metroid. No news about Zelda. No news about any of their major Mario titles. Like, I guess we got Paper Mario this year, but that's not a mainline Mario title. It was the 35th anniversary of Mario Brothers. You would think that we would have gotten more.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing from their first party studios. Not or from their whatever you want to call them. That they're all one studio, but you know what I'm saying.
Just nothing from Nintendo. Realistically.
Then on top of that, you have these headassery things. These just straight up, just like, what the fuck are you doing? These anti-consumer policies. You have, again, Mario 35. You have a bunch of games that are only going to be available until fucking, March of this next year?
Yeah, March 21st,
whatever reason. You have famously restrictive copyright lawyers going after copyright claims on a level that is unheard of. You have the company coming down on its fan events for things that are important, like high-profile Smash tournaments and fundraisers. And, this is totally unacceptable. Every other gaming company has figured this out. Every other gaming company is like, okay, Twitch is good. Twitch gets us publicization. That's the word. These events are ultimately good for our company, but because Nintendo doesn't get to control the events, they're like, no, this is not fucking happening. All the while, all of this is happening, they're fucking raking in Scrooge McDuck money. The whole year.
They made the most money.
They made so much money off of the back of the Switch because everybody wanted a Switch this year because everyone was stuck at home. They sold so many consoles this year. I think they're probably the best-selling console of the year. Animal Crossing is one of the best-selling games of the year. We'll talk about, if we get to this story, we'll talk about some games industry numbers from gamesindustry.biz. Animal Crossing was only outsold by Call of Duty this year. That is a highly profitable game. They made so much money and they didn't do anything except for shitty things. You know, like everything they did this year was crap. Or it wasn't, maybe it wasn't crap. Like Animal Crossing was great. Mario 35, the collection itself, while they could have, done it better with like actual remasters, they just not just straight ports. They could have done that, implemented that better. At least it was a product that people wanted. Like they did good things.
The creative side was great. The business side was shit.
So
the legal
bad.
side was garbage.
My worry is that they look at this year and they're like, look how fucking good we did.
Let's repeat.
Let's pat ourselves on the back, boys. What a great year. Next year, just same old, nothing new.
Same thing.
Same
Just,
thing.
swap out Mario for Zelda and you're good to go.
You'll get the Zelda 35 collection with Wind Waker, Majora's Mask, and the other one that was on N64. That's for
Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time. You'll get that, but they're straight ports. Also, those games have been re-released like 8 times. But here you go. You got them again on the Switch.
Excellent.
No Animal Crossing, though. So they have to find something else for that.
Got to find a new cash cow. So you didn't hear about the new thing that leaked?
I don't think so. What was it?
I didn't do too much digging just because it was so overwhelming. But basically, quote unquote, the Nintendo ninjas are real and they stalked people.
Oh no.
They had like a hit list almost of people who were doing like 3DS homebrews and like hacks and stuff. And they had like, I don't know exactly how detailed these things are, but like there were pretty detailed reports that leaked from Nintendo with like information about the people who were making these things. So like legitimately
So they doxed people.
spying on people. I don't know how much action was taken in terms of that, but like they had way more information about some of these people than they definitely legally should have. So
I can't with this company. I can't anymore. I don't know what the hell they're doing in Kyoto right now, but okay.
like there's this whole hacker enforcement proposal, investigative findings, lifestyles and activities about like surveillance. Like I guess this one person was a 26-year-old male living with the parents in, I don't know how to pronounce that, but something Belgium. Like they knew where the guy lived. They knew what his typical like Monday through Thursday work schedule was. Like there are the next steps.
Yeah, that's Blade Runner stuff. That's like
it's disturbing.
Okay. And they collect all
Family-friendly company.
Turns out they get all of that data from the Nintendo app.
Yeah.
Turns out the biggest feature of the Nintendo app is that it tracks your every movement and you don't know.
It's the Nintendo app is just spying.
That's incredible. Yeah, Nintendo, do better in 2021, please.
Please, for the love of God. On the flip side, I think Nintendo, again, on the creative side, not the administrative, not the spying, not any of these other sides, truly helped a lot of people make it through some of the maybe roughest times of their life, both for kids who don't understand what's going on or why, and for adults who had everything just like their way of life taken away within the span of like a week.
Animal Crossing really did come out at just the perfect time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was the monotony that we all needed, that we were missing.
And it was the cultural touchstone, like you look back at especially the early days of the virus and there just wasn't anything new. Like, sports were shut down. There were no sports. There was like, I guess at that time it was the spring, so they were like, at least in American television, there were shows that were wrapping up their seasons that had been shot before.
There was a
Usually
little bit of entertainment left.
Sure, but it was winding down. Like it was almost got out, and they haven't shot the new stuff yet. So what is there to really see? Like what is there to do? And Nintendo definitely helped to fill that gap. With its consoles, with its consoles and with its games, with Animal Crossing especially. But a lot of those people that bought their first Switch or a Switch Lite or whatever it was also now can go play Breath of the Wild. They can go play Mario Odyssey. These great games that they have in the backlog. And, you know, that was important for a lot of people. Like you said, that was, you know, a way to cope in a time where we all needed to find some way to cope. And that is all on the creative people at Nintendo.
Yep.
The people
Creative
sitting in
side.
the boardroom of that Kyoto tower, they can go eat a dick. But, you know, the creative people, good job.
You did great. I wish that you were the ones who are going to get the corporate bonuses at the end of the fiscal year, but you're probably not.
Probably not.
It's going to be the opposite of how it should be.
It's going to be those people that are, you know, doxing people that live in Belgium because they're making they're making fucking
a 3DS emulator or something.
Yeah, for games that are 20 years old and you're not selling any of right now anyway.
Yeah. And you have to buy them from a used game store in a pandemic? No thanks. I want all of my things to be as new as possible now.
Head assery.
Yep.
On the flip side of Nintendo, and actually to what you were just saying about, you know, some of the good things that came out of Nintendo this year for the pandemic, I'm going to take that another step further and say that by and away, largely, video game publishers this year are doing extremely well.
Sure.
Not just like with sales, but with like marketing and with the games that have come out. I can't think of a single major AAA publisher other than CD Projekt that has released a game this year and for it to be like either panned or like no one bought it or something like that. Sony had a banner year. Sony had, you know, The Last of Us Part 2 and The Ghost of Tsushima, which are two games nominated for Game of the Year in a lot of places. Sold tons of copies. Then they had a fucking console launch and had a bunch of new games like Demon Souls and like Bugsnax and like all of these other exclusives that come out. Sackboy and Astro's Playroom and these other games. Sony had a great year. Xbox had a great year. They put out maybe not so many first-party games, but Game Pass. What better service to occupy people's time with right now than Game Pass? Game Pass is doing great.
It's
Xbox had a great year. The marketing event for the Series X way back in July when they first showed off a lot of those new Game Pass games. Excellent. Even EA and Ubi are doing pretty well. Like, Watch Dogs Legion, pretty mediocre. Sold well. Assassin's Creed, doing well. Immortals Phoenix Rising is doing well critically. I see a lot of people on Reddit talking about that game right now in the same way that Ghost of Tsushima was being talked about, where like Ghost of Tsushima was, you know, not anything new from an open world kind of game, but everybody latched onto it.
Yeah.
I see that happening with Phoenix right now too. So Ubi's doing great. Even EA turned around the Star Wars thing, released a new Star Wars game this year that reviewed critically well with the dogfighting game, whatever it's called, Squadrons. They have, some exciting stuff on the horizon that's coming. We see Dragon Age being talked about. We have a new Mass Effect teaser that's getting people pumped. I don't see any like anger. It's all being directed towards CD Projekt Red, which is the publisher for one game. Meanwhile, all the other major third-party publishers are doing very well. Even like smaller publishers. Devolver had a fucking amazing year with Fall Guys and some other games that they put out.
But mostly Fall Guys.
Mostly Fall Guys. But Devolver had a great year. Bethesda was bought by Xbox, so they're having a great year.
They got the golden goose to buy them.
Best of 2020. Video game publishers not named Nintendo, and even at that point, it is kind of Nintendo. Not named CD Projekt Red.
Or Nintendo's corporate board.
Sure. Next worst of, let's just go right to it. Cyberpunk 2077.
Ooh.
The only example of a game that I can think of off of the top of my head that was panned this year.
Yeah.
And has significant negative press.
It takes a lot for a single game to make Xbox and Sony reconsider their refund policy on digital titles. For one, like if it's been a long-standing issue, that's one thing. But for one single game to make them have to be like, okay, we clearly need to fix this because this is now broken.
And for it to happen with maybe other than Half-Life 2, Half-Life 3, one of the most and Half-Life 3 hasn't even been announced.
No.
One of the most overhyped games of all time. This game, you can go back and watch a recap episode. You can go back and rewatch or re-listen to some podcasts from months ago, and you will hear me say this game is being overhyped.
Yeah,
this game
sure.
In no way can come out and live up to the expectations that everybody has for it, and it didn't. Is it a bad game though? No, it's not. As long as it's working on a PC, on PS4 and Xbox One, it's shit. But otherwise, it's a pretty good game. But it's not the game everybody wanted it to be.
They've really set themselves up for that continued support on a game category for the Game Award.
They really did. They really did.
If they can turn it around and make it a really good game in, I don't know, maybe a year, get enough patches and enough bugs worked out, they could take that category.
I'm really curious to see the Game Awards in particular next year, because I think that most of the other outlets, the actual news outlets, have either included it. I've seen Cyberpunk included in some of the nominations, at least. It hasn't won from anywhere, but it was included on IGN's.
Not.
Yeah, I've seen it in the top 15 games for some I think it was on Polygon's or Kotaku's or somebody's. Anyway,
that's out of obligation, right?
I don't think so. I mean, you look at what they rated it, and they rated it a 9 because they reviewed it on a PC before the console versions came out. And again, the PC version, I'm playing it is a 9. Like, it is, I guess, an 8 or a 9.
I guess that's the you need to divide reality, right, of how is the experience of this game versus the societal reaction to this game.
Yeah.
Because you need to split those things.
I hate to go back into this topic in depth, but this was such an unforced error. We talked about this a little bit last week, but the investors, basically CD Projekt could have delayed the game and no one would have been upset about it. The investors didn't even know, they asked the question, why didn't you delay it? Yeah. And CD Projekt, the head guys were just like, well, we just wanted to put it out. We could have delayed it, but we didn't.
We could have, but we chose to make everybody way more mad.
So there's that side of it. They could have just delayed it. What they should have done is just fucking release the PC version. The PC version, had it just come out, even with the bugs in it, would have been fine. That would have been there would have been no uproar. There would have been people that were disappointed because they didn't get to play it this Christmas, but at least you wouldn't have all of this negative press about hiding the reviews for the console versions, about all of this other stuff. There would have been people upset on the PC version that didn't have a lot of the mechanics that they thought they were going to get. However, at least the game is playable and it's great. It's good.
Yeah.
Or great. It's such an unforced error. And for it to be the game that everybody was looking forward to for 10 years, and from the studio that up until 2 weeks ago was the darling of gamers everywhere. All of the gamers that, when I say gamer, hashtag gamer, Gamergate, oh, hell yeah, we're gamers kind of people. That is CD Projekt Red. That is their studio because there's no microtransactions. They're upfront. They say everything. They don't really do any of those things.
was all years and years ago. Times have changed.
So that sucked.
That did suck.
Best of
Is
2020.
there a positive?
Nope. No positive for
right.
Cyberpunk.
That's just negative. Biggest room for improvement.
Where do I want to go next? Best of 2020. Console launches.
Okay. I've got a worst of part of this for sure.
I do too, actually. We'll go back to worst of after this, but best of
All right.
console launches. PS5 and Xbox Series X/S both released without any major issues. We're not seeing like any widespread hardware issues. We're not seeing red rings. We're not seeing system failures or borked controllers or anything like that. Everything's running great. There are some little things that I want to improve. I want PlayStation to improve rather on the PlayStation Store in particular, but otherwise the feature sets are great. Console launches, aside from actually being able to obtain a console, went very well.
True.
Xbox Series X could have had a better lineup. Not having Halo was a bummer, but the console itself is great.
Xbox could have also, and this is, there's no way to work around this. They could have made their naming
That's true.
literally anything else.
I mean, there's so much way around it.
We still have yet to see if any articles come out about this, but like,
Oh yeah,
man, how many unhappy kids are there going to be in 2 days?
that is a good point. I'm gonna look at Reddit probably on the morning of the 26th and see just
there's gonna be a big spike in angry consumers from the Xbox fan base.
Let's see, where should I go for that? I'm gonna go to r/teenagers, I think.
Sure.
For
that
some-
sounds good.
For some good Schadenfreude. I think that's probably a good place to go. Yeah, that's a good point though. I forgot about that whole thing.
Yeah. Whoops.
And that's another unforced error. Just name it something else, you guys. Like the
Literally
name is the
anything else.
Xbox. Can you just take the X out of it? Just no more X's. You're only allowed to have one X. One X. Not an Xbox One X. I'm talking about just one X in the name of the console, and it's in the name of your brand. Name it something else.
This is the problem with naming things like a unique individual thing instead of taking the Sony approach of just numerical 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nintendo can get away with it because they are quirky. Xbox, you are not quirky. You should not have named the second system the 360.
The thing is, Xbox has never tried to be quirky. They try to be Silicon Valley about it. Nintendo's always about like, let's name it something fun. The GameCube. Oh yeah, that's a cube and it's a square, so we'll, GameCube. Oh, the Wii. It's because we play it or whatever.
We have fun.
Yay! Wii U was admittedly a bad name, and we shouldn't have done that one. Actually, that whole console shouldn't have existed. But Switch. That's like, it's always fun stuff. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
Xbox is like, you know what? We're gonna be Apple. We're gonna be
Cutting edge.
and it's the iPhone S. It's the Xbox Series S. No, just don't do that. It's confusing. It's confusing as fuck. Even iPhone, they have the numbers on them. Do that. Don't go 360. I don't want to know. I don't want this to be, some stupid corporate synergy thing with the 360 being all encompassing. No, just give me the Xbox 2, guys. That's all I want.
Or if you're going to do the 360 approach, have that be your interval. Xbox 360, Xbox 720, Xbox 1080.
just bump it up to the resolution. This is the Xbox 4K. The Xbox 8K.
There you go.
Easy. No, not what we have.
Nope.
So that best of veered off into worst of. Let's go a step further into worst of with the actual launch of the consoles getting into consumer hands. That was very bad.
That was very bad, and that is not exclusive to the consoles.
No.
You have the same issue with the fancy graphics cards that a lot of people wanted.
You do. So you got really pre-orders. I guess this is not so much the consoles, just pre-orders in general.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because then there was that whole thing where like it was Walmart, right? Where they borked something. Didn't PlayStation say, "Hey, we're going to
Yes.
give you warning," and then Walmart was like, "Hey, we are we are circumventing your warning and putting
This
up
whole
pre-orders
thing,
now."
this whole thing was so stupid. So I think PlayStation, no, Xbox, I think came out with their release date first. They said we're launching on November, whatever it was, 15th, and you're going to be able to pre-order your console at this time on this day. These are when pre-orders are going live.
Yes.
And so everyone was like, oh, yeah, we know it's going to happen. PlayStation didn't do that. They had their press conference. They said pre-orders are going to be up tomorrow. Tomorrow when? Tomorrow where? They didn't say anything about it until after the showcase or whatever. And then the PlayStation blog put up a thing that's like, okay, pre-orders are going to be up on these. Here's when they're going to be up. Until Walmart just decides at like 5 p.m. the day before pre-orders were supposed to be up to be like, here you go. And the pre-orders just went live. And then after Walmart went live, then Best Buy went live, and then Target went live, and then Sam's Club went live, and then Amazon went live at like 11:30 p.m. All because Walmart rather didn't listen to instructions. Or didn't care about instructions. And then after that happened, so that whole thing was a cluster.
Yes.
However, everybody that got pre-orders, I think, were people that day. Like the people that got the pre-orders from Walmart, from Best Buy, as soon as they went live, were actual people.
Yeah, they. I guess the silver lining was that the people who run like the bots didn't have enough time to make the bots.
Right.
Because Walmart just threw it against the wall. They were like, all right, here it is, go.
All of them did. Yeah. Like there was no warning from any of those retailers on the first day. It was just, okay, the consoles are now live. Like, get your pre-order now. Here's PS5.
Chaos that no bot can predict.
Sure. And then Microsoft the next day is like, wow, that launch went pretty poorly. Don't worry. If you're online, you can get your pre-order on this date and time. Psych, because a bunch of, neckbeards made a bunch of bots and bought all the Xbox Series X's and S's the day that
how many consoles did that one group buy? Like 3,000 or something?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Thousands. Yeah.
Like an amount that means that they had like six figures of money to at least up front, which was gross.
Horrible. And then, yeah, the same thing with the NVIDIA GPUs. The 30s, all of them. The 3070s, 3070s, 80s, and 90s. I think that the 3060s that have come out, and I think that there's a 3060 Ti too. There's too many graphics cards in this 30 line NVIDIA.
Yep.
I liked it when there was just the 7080, and the 80 Ti, or maybe the 60, 70, 80, and 80 Ti. Now there's like 8 graphics cards in the 30 generation.
They're doing the iPhone approach.
Don't do that.
The Xbox approach.
Anyway, no one could get any of those graphics cards because bots bought all of them too. You had to go wait in line at Micro Center at 6:30 in the morning every other day when they got shipments in, just to see if you could get one in the morning.
What do those, like, obviously they were just sold off, but like, have they all been sold off at this point? Did somebody just buy them and like?
I don't know. I don't go on eBay. Is such a, like, it doesn't actually correlate to anything because you don't see who actually buys things. Like, it doesn't actually say what percentage of these are actually being sold and what percentage are just being trolled on.
Yeah.
So,
because you can win an auction and then be like, nah.
Yeah. I don't know. All I know is that even to this day, the Columbus subreddit is full of people posting when there are graphics cards at Micro Center. They'll be like, there are 7 3070s right now at Micro Center. Go get them.
Good luck.
So that was that was shitty.
There is hopefully going to be some drastic change going forward.
I hope so.
I hope. I don't really expect it, but
I have no expectation of this happening. Because I have complained about this before. Except this wasn't a
Yeah.
bot problem. This was a bandwidth problem buying movie tickets.
Oh, right.
I remember when I was talking about, I can't remember what it was. It was either a Marvel film or a Star Wars film. Like the tickets went live during Monday Night Football or whatever one day. And then it's just impossible because the servers are overloaded. Like these companies, they don't care. Like people are going to buy the thing anyway, eventually. I wish that wasn't the case. And you do see some examples, like Microsoft one day, I saw an article on CNN or something that was like, Walmart stopped 500 bots from buying Xboxes.
You'll only see the positive thing. Stops 500 bots, but like underneath it's like, but accidentally sold to 8,000 different other bots.
Well, that's the other thing is it didn't say this in the article, but like, okay, theoretically they identify the bots, they cancel those orders. Those Xboxes that were bought now go back into the inventory system. They put out a tweet saying, okay, Xboxes are going to be available on this day, and then the bots just buy them again, don't they? It's just a constant thing of like these orders getting canceled.
There's a warehouse full of Xboxes, and they're like, why don't people want the Xbox?
Right. It's just they keep getting loaded on the trucks and then taken back off the trucks. It's just they're paying somebody just to move them back and forth.
Yep.
Okay. I mentioned Star Wars.
You did mention Star Wars.
Let's go to a bad thing first, though, before we go to Star Wars. Let's go to
Sure.
Marvel. This is mainly coronavirus's fault, but there was like nothing this year from Marvel.
Yeah.
From the cinematic universe.
There was basically nothing from movies, right?
Right. Hollywood in general, television in general. I mean, I know there's still stuff coming out, and they've been shooting some stuff, with preventative measures for coronavirus, but like movie theaters are struggling. There's a bunch of like Regal Cinemas, AMC closed a bunch of theaters in Columbus. And I'm not going to a movie theater anytime soon.
No, God, no.
But yeah, like the only thing that Marvel had this year, I think from the movie side was going to be Black Widow, and that's been put off indefinitely. I don't know when that's coming out, period. But like there wasn't really any new Disney Plus series. They've been talking about the WandaVision show forever, which that's finally getting that's coming out in January. But it's not so much the coronavirus that worries me about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's just like, honestly, where do we go from here? Because Endgame happened, and that was a lot of there was a lot of wrap up there for a lot of a lot of heroes that are very popular.
Just saying that there's a reason why they called it Endgame.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, it was the same day the Game Awards, when they showed off all of the new Marvel stuff, some of it looks pretty good. Like I'm excited for Captain Winter Soldier and Falcon. That's a good buddy cop show that I'm excited to watch. The Thor series, or the Loki series looks cool. I'm excited for Guardians 3. All of this other stuff, though, I don't know that I'm like, I don't know this is going to work. Doctor Strange 3 will probably be good. The next Spider-Man looks fucking incredible from the cast list. It looks like they're doing Spider-Verse. Have you seen any of this?
Not really,
They've
no.
casted a bunch of people from the Tobey Maguire, incling Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield.
I did. I heard about all three Spider-Man being in there.
And
I was
like Doc Ock, the guy that played Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2 was casted, and there's like they're bringing back characters from earlier Spider-Man movies. I think this movie's going to be great. There's some stuff to be excited for, but like all of the new stuff that's like supposed to fill the gap of Iron Man, of Captain America, does not look like it's going to. At least at this present time. And I don't know how you build up these new characters you're introducing to be as impactful as what happened with the whole Thanos arc of the universe.
Yeah. I mean, that was lightning in a bottle.
Sure.
You had years and years of development and interconnecting these movies. You can't just do that again. Like, then it's impressive, but now it's stale.
It's true. CC in the chat asked, what about Spider-Pig? John Mulaney just went to rehab, so that might be kind of hard.
Yeah.
Also, actually, while I'm thinking about that, John, I just read on Polygon, literally an hour ago, Spider-Verse is being taken off of Netflix on like the day after Christmas.
Fine, I'll watch it tomorrow.
You said you were going to watch it over Thanksgiving and you never did. You have to watch. This is your Christmas movie.
That's where's it going?
It's not going to be streamable.
It's really, that's dumb.
You got to watch Spider-Verse.
All right. I will.
So yeah, Marvel, I don't know what's next. I'm excited for a few of the Disney Plus shows in particular, a couple of the movies, but largely the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm not so sure about. And there was hardly anything this year. So worst of 2020, the MCU. Best of 2020 though, fucking Star Wars, dude. Star Wars is back. Everyone thought it was dead after Rise of Skywalker because that movie was not what people wanted. But the Mandalorian crushed it last year. The Mandalorian crushed it this year. And then we're getting all this cool new stuff that was unveiled 2 weeks ago with a Rogue Squadron movie or Disney Plus series or something. We have Kenobi coming. We have Hayden Christensen reprising his role as Darth Vader in that Kenobi series. There's so much cool stuff coming from Star Wars. Like, it's exciting to be a Star Wars fan. Watching the last episode of season 2 of Mandalorian was like, I don't know. Did you ever see Rogue One?
Yeah, I did. That was the one out of like the new set of movies that I did see.
So there's a moment there's two moments at the end of Rogue One that are so powerful. One, there's a scene of Darth Vader being a fucking badass that is legitimately powerful because he's fucking just like wrecking shop on these dudes.
Yeah, he is by definition powerful.
Yeah. Like, you don't really get the sense of Darth Vader being powerful in the original trilogy because they were limited by their production.
Yeah, he was scary, but like scary in name.
Yeah. You never see him.
Like he was a thing that he was as an idea, he was scary.
Right. But at the end of Rogue One, he is legitimately horrifying. But then right after that moment, there's a moment with another character that I won't spoil. I won't spoil this one, even though this movie's like 4 years old, because it's such a great moment where you see a character brought back to life through CGI after, I don't want to say that part of it because that's spoilers to who it is. But anyway, you see a character brought back to life. Powerful. Yes. Some of that same like energy, like like how great those scenes were in that movie, come to life in the last season of The Mandalorian. If you truly do have the Disney Plus, as you say you do now, watch The Mandalorian. So great.
Yeah,
you don't need to watch any of the new trilogy stuff because this takes place after Return of the Jedi. So it's all old stuff. 100% watch that.
All right.
So it's exciting for Star Wars. Best of 2020.
I can't believe that you're leaving out the real best of 2020 in terms of the cinematic movie kind of experience. What a shame. What a shame. It has been a long year, so I guess I can see why you forgot.
That feels like 3 years ago, dude.
Doesn't it?
It feels so long ago.
Isn't it so crazy that the last movie I quite possibly will ever see in movie theaters is the Sonic
the Hedgehog. I cannot believe that was this year.
Yeah.
It was February, right?
It was February, yeah. I think it was Valentine's Day.
I think you're right. We did a whole special episode of the podcast on it.
We did, in fact, yeah. I posted some pictures of us in our super fan outfits. I've still got all of it, and I don't know what to do with the hat, especially.
Yeah, that I'll put that up as best of 2020
for sure. Yeah,
like
who would have thought that the movie of the year would be the Oscar goes to Jim Carrey's Sonic the Hedgehog.
Like, you think about for a second what you did this year. What you honestly did this year. Like, March 17th was St. Patrick's Day. So March 14th was the last day prior to lockdown. Which means, like, the week before that, the Saturday before the 15th, which I think was the first day that I was quarantined. Like, that we started self-quarantining. So what, the 8th or whatever? Saturday the 8th of March, we went downtown to a Greek restaurant and ate out. And that was, like, the last thing we did.
Yeah.
Before that, like, how many times did we leave the house? Like, Sonic the Hedgehog happened this year. We went to OhioCon. and left OhioCon in 30 minutes because we couldn't figure out how to get into OhioCon. That happened this year. And that was literally it. Like, there was nothing that happened outside of the walls of this house.
The year started. It was 2020. It seemed like it was going to be an iconic year for good reasons. And then they were like, no.
It's like,
you're staying home.
Okay, try to get through a few of these. And we don't need to talk all of these, actually. Just real quick. Best of 2020 accessibility in games. Seems like it's better than ever.
Yes.
We have a category at the Game Awards honoring accessibility in games.
And, like, it's one thing for accessibility. Like, I don't know how to say this the right way. But they are taking it a step further by having games put in an arachnophobia safe mode. It's taking it a step further than what you would think when you're thinking of accessibility, because your gut instinct is to think of like the actual controller or how to actually physically play the game or something like that, or maybe skill level. But like, they are now putting in things that are more mental barriers too, that people can now overcome. Because I know people who are legitimately horrified of anything involving spiders, and if that comes up on a screen for a video game, they're out. That's it.
Physical, I mean, other, like...
Not to take away from like the advancements that have been made
Sure.
in the more traditional things that you would think of when it comes to accessibility. I'm just saying that they are improving those, but also branching out into new categories, which is, you love to see improvement, but you also love to see additions.
The other thing I'm thinking about, though, is like, I was just reading an article about The Last of Us Part 2.
Sure.
That game is entirely playable for people who are blind. Like, legally, not even just legally blind, like totally blind. Blind video, like blind people can play games. That's not something that could happen.
That is an impressive feat.
5 years ago, let alone with like a AAA shooter like The Last of Us. Like, that's important, powerful stuff.
Yes.
And you know, there are a lot of great organizations out there that work on this topic and have been pushing this forward. I think about Able Gamers being up there with Steven Spawn's nonprofit. But like, I think that the company that really started pushing, I guess maybe not started pushing, but at least were visible
got
first,
a lot of traction,
was Microsoft with the adaptable controller a couple of years ago. And then, you know, Naughty Dog coming out being really powerful. Celeste had great options a couple of years ago. I think that, you know, games are universal more so now than they've ever been. And not even just in like accessibility for people that don't play games. We're talking about true accessibility for people with physical limitations.
Who could not play games before.
Yeah.
But now they have the option. So yeah, that's what you want to see.
100%. Here's another best of / worst of 2020. Both. The death of E3. E3 is dead. Long live E3.
Goodbye, E3. You will, I guess, maybe be missed?
Worst of E3, or the worst of the death of E3, is that it felt like there's no cohesion anymore. Like, there's no time where, you know, we can take 5 days and really talk about games and gaming news and new trailers and all this stuff in a meaningful way.
You could let your freak out, so to speak.
Yeah. Like,
for a solid 4 or 5 days.
Sure. That's an event where everybody's talking. That doesn't exist anymore. And so that takes some of that, like, zeitgeist communication part out of it. Like, you don't get to have that water cooler moment on this podcast or with your friends, wherever it is.
Yeah.
About a lot of things. The flip side of that, though, is that now we are getting announcements like throughout the year in ways that are more than just like, here's a trailer for something. Like PlayStation's...
A lot of people have adapted the the direct approach
Yes.
from Nintendo, except apparently Nintendo, who is now moving away from that.
Nintendo's like, you know what? They're being the true
They're being the
hipsters about it, where it's
we
like,
did it before it was cool, and now that it's mainstream, we're out.
Yeah, we're not. This isn't us anymore. We got to find the next thing. The next thing apparently is just not talking at all. So,
and like doxing people and
God damn it,
just being awful.
But yeah, you just like Sony's state of plays came so far this year. I think Sony had like 2 state of plays prior to the pandemic. They had one last fall and one in like February, and both of them were just like they were pretty bad.
Sure.
They showed off like maybe something sort of interesting. Iron Man VR was shown off once. Like mainly it was smaller indie titles or games that we knew were coming out anyway.
Yeah.
But then over the summer, with no E3, even though Sony said they weren't coming to E3 as it was before the pandemic, we got 2 or 3 state of plays that were
quality.
Yeah. Like 45 minutes to 60 minutes of high quality content, of stuff that we actually want to see, of hardware, of software, of systems. They had knocked it out of the park. Xbox did the same thing, especially with their reveal events and some of those events over the summer.
They're a little cheeky back and forth where it was like, all right, Xbox is announcing a lot of stuff except for the price. So on to you, PlayStation.
Yeah.
Here's a lot of cool stuff also except for the price. Back to you, Xbox.
It's playing volleyball.
Yep.
But the presentations themselves were great. There was very little like... The thing I hate about E3 is that some of those conferences are built like they were meant for 1995 audiences.
Sure.
Like you get a guy that isn't a public speaker, that majored in computer science in college, super introverted, out on a stage, and he has an awkward moment. It's like, I don't need to see that. Sometimes it's cute, like with Yarny and that one from Unraveled that one year, or like with Ikumi Nakamura when she announced Ghostwire Tokyo. Like you get some like good moments from awkward people, but most of the time it's just awkward.
It's what's that word? Cringy.
But you don't
get less cringe.
You don't get that because everything is in a nice little video package that's pre-recorded
and edited.
Not
live.
Yeah. So that's 2 sides of the best of, worst of. No E3, so it sucks we didn't get to do like E3 predictions this year or have a podcast completely dedicated to it. On the other hand, they gave us podcast content all year long. I feel like something that we talked about this year a couple of months ago was like, we didn't really have that many podcasts this year of evergreen topics because there was so much news throughout the year.
There was just so much to constantly talk about.
So like it makes our quote unquote job easier on this podcast because, we don't have to like struggle to find topics week in, week out.
Thank you, Major Game Studios.
I doubt E3 is going to be back next year. Like early summer is too close to when they're saying vaccines are going to be readily available to the general public.
Yeah.
So
plus that's just available. That doesn't mean realistically.
Right.
So and you're going to have the dickheads who would go without getting it first anyways.
Sure.
And now, oh no, we have a new virus outbreak from like these people who decided not to get it and these people who just didn't. They were at the bottom of the list and couldn't get it yet.
Yeah, so I doubt E3 is going to happen this year or next year, whatever. It's 2021 in my head already. Like I'm off work. I'm not doing anything for the next 11 days. So for me, it's 2021 now.
It's probably all cons are dead next year.
I would assume so.
Again.
Maybe.
They might try to push for stuff that would normally happen like in the fall.
Yeah, I'm thinking like isn't there a PAX that takes place in the fall? Like PAX West maybe is in October or something, or PAX East rather.
I don't know how much prep work. Like
that's true too.
That's not my job. I don't know how much like prep work and how far out in advance you have to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because that is a lot of people and scheduling you have to coordinate, and like I imagine it's not something you can just whip together in like 3 months.
Right.
That seems like it needs a full year of prep work.
You would think.
But who? I mean, what do I know? Maybe it isn't as prep work intensive as I'm thinking. Maybe you can realistically throw it together in 6 months or 4 months.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing, like, I guess where I was thinking was, those the tourism industry is obviously struggling right now, and they're raring for people to get back to it.
Yes.
So, and cons obviously play a big role in that, especially in some cities like Seattle has decent, that's a destination for people, but 1 weekend a year, PAX Prime or PAX West happens, and that's like a huge event.
That takes over. Yeah.
So
I do wonder. I mean, I wonder the willingness, if there even are cons, of people to go, because they've been known traditionally, from my experience, as big cesspools of disease, con cold
and not
or
even
con
just
flu or whatever.
and not even just from the attendee perspective, like from the exhibitor perspective too. Like a big reason why a lot of those events, like the March events, were canceled this year was because Sony was like, we're not going to that. We're not going there. We're not taking people there.
There's not putting all of our employees' risk or health at risk.
Right. So even if like people are willing to go to the cons, our companies are going to be willing to send exhibitors to the cons.
The actual like content, is it going to be there?
And that's kind of where I'm thinking, no, they're not.
Yeah.
So
not worth the liability, not worth the risk.
My last worst of 2020. Crunch in games. Crunch is bad, you guys.
It is.
Talked about crunch very regularly this year. We've talked about crunch in the past too, in previous years, but this year it's really come to a head for a variety of reasons. One, because the most hyped game of all time, most likely, had a lot of crunch issues when they famously said they were not going to crunch. And then one of the best games that came out this year, The Last of Us Part 2, also had a lot of crunch. In that case, you have a very polished game that came out to rave reviews, and the studio got back what they put into it, and like those,
the crunch, quote unquote, paid off.
Sure, paid off. Not so much in Cyberpunk's example though. And I don't know how we're going to be talking about this at this point next year.
You act as if people are going to learn lessons, my friend.
That's why I'm wondering, are people going to learn lessons?
No.
Let's look at the major games next year. The big ones that we know about. From Sony, we have two major first-party games that were both Game of the Year winners the years they came out with their, again, quote, first game. We got God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn next year, at least.
Yes.
I've never heard anything about crunch at Santa Monica or at Guerrilla Games, but if other Sony studios have crunched, I'm kind of thinking others do too. So
yeah,
we'll see if we start to hear anything from those two studios in particular. On the Xbox side, we have Halo, which has been delayed a whole calendar year to November. I guess, I don't know if they said November, but they said fall 2021 now, for sure.
And new, what was it, game director?
Yeah, new director. Probably a bunch of new staff at the high levels. Like, when that new game director comes in, I assume he has people that he wants to bring in to, like, compliment him.
Sure.
And, like, that's a new vision.
Also, a resoundingly unimpressed reaction from just everyone to their original Halo Infinite, like, trailer.
Yeah. Real quick, like less than a minute discussion on this. Does Cyberpunk change Halo Infinite's, or not even Halo Infinite strategy, Microsoft's strategy with the Xbox One? Because Microsoft has been saying for the last 2 years, the Xbox One is forwards compatible. It's always going to, or not always, but for as long as we can do it, Xbox Series X games are going to run on the Xbox One. The base Xbox One from 2013. Clearly, Cyberpunk was not able to do that.
I hope it changes it. They need to be willing to admit that right now we are still in generations. We can't do this half-step bullshit that they're trying to make work.
Yeah. I truly, honestly, in my heart of hearts, believe that, what was that guy's name? What was the brute's name? Chris? It wasn't Chris. Was it
I
Chad?
forget.
The poorly animated or the poorly textured brute that was famous, the famous thumbnail image from that Halo Infinite reveal from last summer.
Like worse than Halo 2. Well,
horrible.
on par with Halo 2 original, not remake.
Right.
Graphics.
That was there because the game had to be running on Xbox One. I know that to be true. I don't know that for sure, but that's my best guess.
There's no point in making a game twice. Just make it the best version that it needs to be and tell people they need to upgrade.
Yeah.
Sorry, life moves forward.
So anyway, Xbox could be 343 could be crunching on Halo.
Easily.
There are a lot of studios that still crunch, and we know they still crunch. I want to know what the next step is, because we now have the visibility. Like we
can see the problem.
We see the problem. We have devs coming forward to press to talk about the problem. A lot of times that doesn't happen until after games release. I just wonder how long it takes for studios to start adapting non-crunch policies. Yeah. I really hope.
And to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because didn't CG Project Red say that they had a non-crunch policy, and then whoops, a year later, psych, they actually had people crunching.
A lot of people in my Twitter sphere and on Reddit they like to trash Neil Druckmann, the director for The Last of Us. Because as the director of the game, obviously, the studio crunched. And there were some other stories that are half-baked and really don't hold much water about, like, some of what the studio had to go through animating some of the death scenes in that game and stuff like that.
Sure.
I don't know how many people caught it because I haven't seen anyone talk about this, but during his acceptance speech at the Game Awards, he had already been named now co-president of Naughty Dog, so he got a promotion. He is now leading that studio. He mentioned in that acceptance speech that there was a sentence in there about, like, I'm committed to shepherding the studio forward, not only in the creation of amazing games, but how we're creating those games. And when he said that how we're creating those games part, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I've always really liked Neil, and I really truly do believe that he's going to try and hopefully make policy towards limiting some of that going forward.
Yeah.
Because again, the whole crunch issue is so difficult because there are people that want to be there and do it. We've had this discussion so many times, but like there's
recap episode.
It's such a difficult issue because it's not black and white, even though certain aspects are black and white, like people should be able to go home and see their families. It's a complicated issue, and it's going to involve complicated conversations and difficult decisions. But hopefully next year at this time, when we reflect on 2021, we start to see some of these policies being implemented.
One can only hope. That's for sure.
Leave off on a good note, and this will be the last thing we do on this podcast. Best of 2020. I'm just going to give it to video games.
Can I, before we get into that, can I give one last one on my end?
Sure.
We overcame the challenges of having to do it remotely thanks to the pandemic, but we had a very successful Extra Life stream.
Oh yeah.
Raised $1,000 for what are we up to now? 1,100?
1,100 or 1,150.
Rose the most that we've ever raised for Extra Life. So that is always a good thing. You always want to see that.
we're gonna have to crank up the goal a little bit next year because now
Yeah.
we've raised more than $1,000. So, and that was 2
That's
years
true.
in a row. So we'll figure that out.
And like I said, it was very different because normally I am sitting about 2 feet away from you.
Yeah,
This year, we had to make do with a very interesting and unique way of
it's
doing
true.
it.
And there were some things that were better and some things that were, a little bit more to be desired. But again, we
Sure.
raised the most money we've ever raised before. And yeah, good job, everybody. Thank you.
We did it.
So yeah, my last best of 2020 is just video games as a medium of entertainment.
Yeah. It was a good year for games.
I already said
For
this
the most part.
for the most part. I said this earlier, but Hollywood was kind of dead. Television was dead. There were no sports. There were no like new television shows. There were no movies to go to. What did people have to entertain themselves with but video games?
I mean, I guess some people had like books, but again, that's going back to that I have the time, I should do this. And still people probably were like, oh yeah, I have the time, I should read all these books. They didn't.
No.
They will never read those books.
So yeah, this has been a banner year. Like I tweeted earlier. I played 48 games this year. 48.
And I played how many games? I played 32 brand new games. If I counted games that I had previously played, I'd probably be closer to the 40s.
That's almost one a week.
Yeah.
Like, I've never had that high of a count before. I think one year I got close to 50 platinum trophies, but most of those that year were like redos, like sound shapes I got on the PS3, the Vita, and the PS4.
Sure.
So like I got that many trophies, but it wasn't actually that many games, or it was just like shit games. The games I played this year, outside of My Name is Mayo 2, and even with My Name is Mayo 2, I would say that was a worthwhile $1.99 I spent. Like, they were all great they weren't all great experiences, but they were, fresh.
They were real games.
They were real games. They weren't just, free platinum trophies.
They weren't Little Adventure on the Prairie.
So, yeah, I mean, I played 48 games, and of those 48 games, 17 of them I am considering for my Game of the Year list. I'm going to have to knock off 7 games.
Yeah, it is tough. I think I've got like 15 that I realistically want to put in my top 10, which, you know how numbers work. That isn't possible.
Like last year, last year was a low year. Last year was probably the worst year, honestly, in games that I've experienced at least in the last decade, probably. It was hard for me to find 10 games that I felt like truly deserved a place on that list.
Yeah.
3 of the games,
at least games that had come out that year for sure.
3 of the games that I had on there were Persona 4, Persona 5, and Persona 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
This year, all 17 of these games are new games that came out this year. This is undoubtedly, not only was it an important year for games because of the pandemic, it was also far and away the best year ever for video games. There were so many 9 out of 10 out of 10 games.
9 out of 9.
9 out of 9 games.
Somebody adopt the 9-point scale, please.
There's probably some merit there for some people. I'm not one of them, but there were so many amazing games this year. More than any other year ever. So not only was it an important year for games, it was also a highly rated and amazing year for games.
And with the launch of some new consoles, we could see basically a repeat next year.
That's so crazy.
Depending.
Like, I think back to what was the first year on the PS4. And I don't know that there was like, I think that the Order 1886 came out that year, and that was like a 4-hour PlayStation title that got panned because it wasn't long enough. There were like no new games that were of any kind of merit that came out that year. But we know next year we're getting not only Horizon Zero Dawn, but God of War. Two huge games. We know Halo's coming next year. We have no idea what Nintendo's doing, but I would
We
hope
never will.
and assume that they're doing something.
Maybe they seem to have like these weird company shifts. Maybe next shift will be into like transparency.
That would be fantastic. I know it's never going to happen, but maybe 1 year, like when we are what, like 50 years old, so 20 years from now,
Oh God.
when like millennials and like old Gen Zers, like when those people become executives at Nintendo,
Top
maybe
of the
at
corporate
that
food
point.
chain.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The other thing is, Japanese executives live until they're 90 years old, so.
And they do not retire from what I've gathered.
Yeah. Well, who knows? All right. So this whole episode was just a topic of the show. We didn't get to any news, but that's okay because the only news story I really had was going over some stats that gamesindustry.biz put up, and we can actually talk about those next week if we have time, because those stats aren't changing. So
It's true. That's kind of set in stone at this point.
yeah. So join us next week for our predictions episode. We're going to go through our predictions for 2020. John and I made predictions at the beginning of the year. We'll see if any of those came true. And then
God,
we will...
I am so scared for those predictions. Because we could not have predicted that there was going to be a pandemic.
That's true. And then we will make some new predictions for 2021. So look forward to that episode next week. For the rest of the year, actually, that will be the last episode of the year. We'll do that. That's going to be next Tuesday, because next Thursday is New Year's Eve. So Tuesday, we will do the podcast. Are you good for Sunday again? Actually, let me ask a couple things. It's Wednesday right now. Are you good for next Tuesday?
What is next Tuesday?
The 29th?
I think so.
Okay. The plan is for Persona 4, episode 4 on Sunday, and then podcast on Tuesday.
Okay. I
That's
will
the
let
plan.
you know if there are any issues on my end.
Okay. And if there are any issues, I will tweet about it. So-
And we will also announce it. I will have them for sure figured out by Sunday.
Okay. So yeah, next week is our predictions episode, January 7th, which is the following Thursday. So we're doing Tuesday next week, back to normal Thursday the following week. That will be our Game of the Year episode, January 7th.
And we will be back to a normal schedule at that
Yes.
point going forward.
So that is the slate going forward. If you liked what you heard, you can find us live on twitch.tv/CDRMagnus, normally on Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also find us on all of your favorite podcast services, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, YouTube, and more, shortly after the live show ends. I think that's about it. Anything else for the good of the order, John, before we wrap things up?
Nope.
All right. Have yourselves a happy Christmas, a happy holidays, a happy secular Christmas, a happy whatever you celebrate. Happy, what's the Seinfeld one?
Festivus for the rest of us.
Festivus. I saw Jerry Seinfeld tweet today. I don't follow Jerry Seinfeld, but someone retweeted him. Jerry Seinfeld tweeted, "Can we do Festivus this year without the airing of grievances?" I just feel like we really need to do it without the airing of grievances this year.
We need to be positive.
Yeah. So happy all of those holidays. Happy New Year if you don't see us next week. And otherwise, we'll see you in 2021.
God, it's so close.
Good night. And, oh, man. I had a thing that I was going to say, and now I forgot it. It was some holiday thing about that poem that people read. What's the fucking poem? A Night Before Christmas. I had a whole thing, and now it's gone. So you don't get that. Instead, you get me rambling, and that's going to be where we cut it. Goodbye.